The music was still playing. Low violins hummed through the cathedral, a soft soundtrack for a dream that was about to shatter. Guests dressed in silk and diamonds whispered gently, assuming the delay was just a bridal thing, a broken heel, a last-minute touch-up. They didn't know the bride was no longer in her suite. She was standing perfectly still in a silent hallway, her veil pristine, her bouquet of white orchids trembling slightly in her hands. Her name was Enya Darlington, and she was staring at a door she had just closed. Less than a minute ago, she had opened it. Giddy with nerves and excitement, she had sneaked away, wanting to see her fiancé, Marvick, for a silly, secret moment before their lives changed forever. Her phone was in her hand, recording a playful video message for him. "You better be ready for me," she whispered into the camera, a huge smile on her face. But the scene she walked in on wasn't playful. That's when she heard it, faint sounds coming from down the hallway. Voices, movement, something that froze her in place. Her smile faded. Her feet carried her forward, one silent step after another, drawn by a horrible, sinking feeling she couldn't explain. The video was still recording, her phone loose in her hand. She didn't even realize it was still on. The door to his suite was slightly open. She hesitated, then pushed it, just an inch. And she saw them. Marvick. Her Marvick. His jacket lay on the floor, and Naomi was beside him, too close, too familiar. The truth hit harder than any scream could. In that moment, the world she thought she knew shattered. Her phone, held loosely at her side, captured it all. She didn't cry out, she didn't drop her flowers. She simply stepped back and closed the door. Only then did she realize the camera was still recording, capturing everything she had just witnessed. Then she turned and walked away, a statue coming to life. This was only the beginning, because 20 minutes later, Enya would return to the cathedral, and what she did next would destroy 3 lives in one afternoon. But no one knew that yet. To the world, Enya Darlington was just another name on the billionaire list, the sole heir to Darlington Technologies, a global empire built on microchips and data. Old money, new power. People assumed things about her: spoiled, cold, distant. Enya was none of those things. She was quiet, observant. She remembered everything. Her father, the tech legend who built their company from a garage, had taught her that. People will show you who they are, Enya. Your job is to believe them the first time. She had believed Marvick. They met at a tech summit in Dubai. He was charming, handsome, and seemed genuinely uninterested in her fortune. He talked about his own small, ambitious startup. What truly won her over was his surprising honesty. On the 3rd date, over coffee, he had told her about his past marriage to a woman named Naomi. "It didn't work out," he said, his gaze steady. "It ended badly and we don't speak. I just believe in being upfront about these things." Enya had been struck by that. Most men would hide that history. His transparency felt like a breath of fresh air, a sign of his good character. A few months later, he'd even shown her a picture, their wedding photo, explaining it had ended over 5 years ago. She remembered studying the woman's face, feeling secure in how distant that chapter seemed. He never asked about her money, never flinched at the security detail that followed her everywhere. He said he loved her quiet strength. He told her she was unlike anyone he'd ever met. He proposed on a private beach during a meteor shower with no cameras, no crowd, just them and a ring. It felt real. It felt safe. But there were small moments. The first time his phone buzzed with Naomi's name, he'd sighed, showing her the screen. "See, she just won't let go," he'd said, dismissing the call. Enya had felt a flicker of sympathy for him. But then it happened again, and again. A late business meeting he couldn't talk about. Sometimes he'd step out to take her calls, returning with a tense jaw, saying, "She's just causing drama, trying to ruin this for us." And you noticed. She always noticed. She filed the doubts away, the way she filed away lines of problematic code, to be reviewed later, if necessary. His early honesty now felt like a clever preemptive strike, a way to frame any of Naomi's future actions as the ravings of a bitter ex. The morning of the wedding, the California sun was brutally bright. Enya woke up calm. There were no jitters. She was sure. The cathedral was a fortress of privacy, secured by her family for the weekend. The guest list was a who's who of tech and finance. Everything was perfect. By 2 p.m., guests were seated. The music began. That Enya didn't appear. She was in her suite, feeling a sudden, overwhelming wave of love and excitement. She wanted to see him, just for a second, to calm her nerves. She picked up her phone, starting a video. "You better be ready," she whispered to the camera, a huge, giddy smile on her face. "I'm coming for you." She slipped out, her dress whispering against the marble floor. She moved down the hall toward his suite, her phone held up, still recording her happy, nervous face. Then it came, a sound she couldn't place at first. Not laughter, not voices, just movement. Faint, steady. Her smile faded. Something inside her went still. The door to his suite stood ajar, a soft glow spilling through the crack. She hesitated, then pushed. The sight waiting on the other side emptied the air from her lungs. Marvick and Naomi, close enough that the truth didn't need words. The look on their faces said everything. They didn't see her, the bride in the doorway, frozen, veil trembling in the dim light. For 20 endless seconds, she stood there. The world didn't move, the night didn't breathe, and in that silence, she finally understood every excuse, every late call, every lie she tried not to believe. Then, without a sound, she stepped back. She closed the door. She stopped the recording. She walked back to her suite, her face a calm mask. Her bridesmaids asked if she was okay. She didn't answer. She looked at herself in the mirror. The billionaire heiress, the powerful CEO, the fool. But the pain was quickly buried under a wave of cold, clear certainty. This was no longer about love. This was about justice. At 2:37 p.m., the cathedral doors opened. Everyone stood. Phones were raised. And there she was, Enya Darlington. But the woman walking down the aisle was not the one they had seen an hour ago. Her face was set in stone. She still wore her magnificent gown. Her veil was still in place, but she carried no bouquet. In her hand, she held only her phone. She walked with a slow, deliberate pace that silenced the music. She didn't look at the guests. She didn't look at her father. Her eyes were fixed on Marvick at the altar, whose face was a mixture of confusion and dawning fear. She reached the front. She didn't stand beside him. She turned and walked to the sound technician's booth. She held out her phone. "Play this on every screen. Now." The technician hesitated, then noticed the airdrop request already open on his control tablet. She'd sent it seconds earlier. The massive screens flickered to life. For a second, there was Enya's happy face. "You better be ready." Her voice echoed through the holy space. Then the camera swung down. The audio picked up the moans. The gasps in the cathedral were like a wave. Then the video showed it. The door, the crack, the undeniable graphic truth of Marvick and Naomi. It played for the full 20 seconds. The silence in the room was heavier than any sound. When it ended, Enya turned. She looked at Marvick, then at the crowd. "I'm not the type to toy with my heart," she said, her voice quiet but sharp enough to cut steel. Then she turned and she walked. She didn't run. She didn't look back. As she moved up the aisle, her eyes met those of her best friend, Alicia, the lead counsel for Darlington Tech. A single, almost invisible nod passed between them. Enya walked out of the cathedral, the doors swallowing her whole. The ceremony was over. The war had just been declared. The silence Enya left behind in the cathedral was louder than any organ blast. It was a vacuum, sucking the air out of the room, leaving 300 people gasping in disbelief. On the massive screens, the frozen gray aftermath of the video cast a sickly pallor over the altar. Marvick stood frozen, a statue of shame and panic. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. He looked towards the guests, searching for a single sympathetic face, and found none. He saw his own parents, their faces buried in their hands. He saw his business partners already turning away, their minds calculating the financial fallout. Naomi had vanished, having fled out a side door the moment the video started, her own life now in ruins. Into this silence stepped Alessia, Enya's best friend since Stanford, and the sharpest legal mind Darlington Tech retained, moved with a calm authority that immediately commanded the room. She didn't go to the altar. She went to the officiant, and her voice, crisp and clear, was picked up by the sensitive microphones. Due to irrefutable evidence of deception and misconduct involving Mr. Marvick Carrington and Ms. Naomi Sterling, she announced, her words echoing in the stunned space, this ceremony is hereby terminated effective immediately. She then turned slightly, addressing the room of shell-shocked guests. Miss Darlington thanks you for your presence and your support. She asks for your understanding and privacy during this deeply painful time. Please be assured that the Darlington family will honor all travel and accommodation costs for every invited guest as a gesture of gratitude. The statement was a masterstroke. In 3 sentences, she had framed Enya as the dignified, wronged victim, labeled Marvick a fraudulent predator, and transformed the guests from witnesses to compensated confidants. It was a narrative takeover, executed with the precision of a corporate merger. The low, approving murmur that rippled through the crowd was the sound of Marvick's social execution. While Alessia managed the public, Enya was already in the back of a tinted SUV, the cathedral shrinking in the rearview mirror. She wasn't crying. She was on the phone with her head of security. Change all the codes at the penthouse, the Malibu house, the Lake Tahoe cabin, all of them. And I want his corporate access revoked in the next 10 minutes. He is to be treated as a hostile entity. Her voice was flat, analytical. The heartbreak had been quarantined. The CEO was now managing a crisis. The fallout was swift and brutal. The video, though never formally released by Enya or her family, was too explosive to contain. It leaked, as things in the digital age always do. A blurred version with the most graphic parts pixelated, but the audio damningly clear, spread through private servers and encrypted chats within hours. Though Enya never released it herself, a bystander's phone had inadvertently captured a partial reflection of the video, spreading it further. Security later traced the source, confirming it hadn't come from Enya. She never needed to post it. The world did that for her. Marvick's ruin was not just social. It was professional and severe. The board of his own startup, Carlington Innovations, demanded his resignation in an emergency meeting that lasted 7 minutes. The scandal was a poison pill. Investors pulled out. Partners dissolved contracts. The company's valuation evaporated in a weekend. But the final killing blow came from a quiet, anonymous leak to the financial press. Documents suggesting creative accounting and financial mismanagement at Carlington Innovations. The source was untraceable, but the timing was impeccable. It was the kind of information a powerful, spurned fiancé with vast resources might just happen to have access to. Regulatory investigations were announced within a week. Marvick faced serious legal jeopardy, and his professional empire crumbled. Naomi fared no better. Her attempts to play the victim, to claim she was manipulated or that the video was a misunderstanding, were met with universal scorn. She had no powerful family to shield her. Her social circle evaporated, brand deals were canceled, and the video became a permanent stain on her reputation. Enya did none of this publicly. She vanished. There were no interviews, no social media posts, no carefully staged photos of her healing journey. Her silence was her power. It confirmed her strength and made Marvick and Naomi's frantic attempts to control the narrative look pathetic by comparison. Her actions spoke for her. The first thing she did was sell the sprawling, glass-walled Pacific Heights mansion they had bought together, the one meant to be their forever home. She didn't just sell it, she liquidated it, furniture and all, through a silent auction. Then, without a single press release, she donated every single penny of the proceeds, a sum totaling over $18 million, to a charity that provided legal and financial support for victims of fraud and coercive control. She named the endowment the Lockett Fund. It was a quiet, devastating tribute to the innocents she had lost the day she went looking for her fiancé with a happy heart and found a predator instead. A month after the wedding that wasn't, a single, grainy photo surfaced online. It was taken by a tourist in a small fishing village on the Amalfi Coast. It showed a woman with a familiar profile, sitting at a small cafe, a simple sketchbook in her lap, a wide-brim hat obscuring her face. She was alone. She was at peace. The locals, when asked, called her Il Fantasma, the ghost. She spoke little, tipped generously, and her eyes held a quiet wisdom that suggested she had seen the worst of people and had chosen to build a better world for herself, far away from their noise. Back in San Francisco, Marvick was a broken man. He never recovered professionally or socially. He was a cautionary tale, a ghost in the system he had tried to cheat. He was last reported to be living off-grid in a remote part of Montana. His name and his reputation, ashes. Enya Darlington had not sought revenge in the traditional sense. She hadn't screamed or destroyed property. She had simply exposed the truth, protected her assets, and walked away. She demonstrated that the most powerful revenge is not a fiery explosion, but a quiet, implacable frost. It is a life lived so fully and so freely that it becomes a constant, unanswerable rebuke to those who tried to break it. She didn't just close the door on Marvick. She locked it, threw away the key, and built a new, more beautiful house somewhere he could never, ever reach. What would you do if you were in Enya's shoes? Could you stay calm and take control, or would your emotions get the better of you? Who do you think deserved justice more? Enya, Marvick, or Naomi? Drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts, and don't forget to include the city or country you're watching from. I'd love to see where my readers are tuning in from around the world. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a tale of suspense, drama, and redemption.